excerpt from Never Again. This book is entitled Hello everybody. I'm reading an excerpt from chapter 9 of Betty's book called Running After St Dominic's Bus, Running After My Life. I was ecstatic when I received a notice of my interview with St Dominic's Girls' School in 1984. I was about to finish primary school and had been waiting 3 months to hear whether they would consider me or not. I was celebrating because I knew this was my first application and it was to the school I most wanted to attend. I knew I could go to many schools should I fail this entrance test, but for me, St Dominic stood out above the rest. The teachers were white nuns from Germany and brilliant. Beautiful girls from lower middle class attended the school. Their blue uniforms, laced with cream collars, tantalized me. Because I had always been capable and hardworking student, everyone told me that if St Dominic's admitted me, I would definitely graduate and go on to university. I could be whatever I wanted to be. When Shishwasha Primary School, located next door to St Dominic's, closed for the August holidays, we all headed home. I kept my forms very close. When I went to bed, I held them at my side, and when sleep came, I dreamed about St Dominic's. My dreams awakened hope for my future. I celebrated again 4 months later, when I learned that I had to come at 6 a.m. on the 6th of August to take an entrance test. I was sure I knew everything. After all, I had always been confident. However, just to be sure, I woke up at 1 a.m. the day of the test and opened my notebook to practice some math problems one last time. At 3 a.m., my stepmother knocked on the door of my room, and I was quickly able to reply. It was fortunate that I was already awake. My stepmother had warned me that getting up 1 minute past 3 was an unforgivable crime, despite the fact that we went to bed at 11 p.m. My punishment would be 10 strokes with a thick piece of wood and the denial of food until 3 p.m. I wanted no delays on this special morning, so, as usual, I cleaned the house, swept the yard, and went outside to wash the family's clothing. My stepmother was never satisfied. My stepmother seemed to walk about with storm clouds above her head, her eyes forever threatening to send out bolts of vicious, cruel lightning which had the power to strike me dead. She was an ugly woman, as no part of her face was symmetrical. Her cheeks looked as though a child playing with clay had thrown them on her face. Her small, piercing eyes were so uninviting that I do not recall any of my siblings ever looking into them. My life was like that of a bonded slave, and I ran around in a panic, eagerly carrying out her every command. I constantly apologized for the faults she found in everything that I did. I tried so hard to please her, and was naive enough to believe my constant apologies and efforts would bring about a change in her attitude towards me. Time was moving along swiftly, and I had to catch the bus to St Dominic's School at 6 a.m. If I missed the bus, and I lost this chance, I would lose my life. I would forever remain poor, and even poorer in my future. My stomach was in a knot of panic, but I dared not answer back or disobey. I got to the bus station in record time, but the bus only left 15 minutes later. It normally took 45 minutes for the bus to reach Harare, but today the driver seemed to be going at a slower pace. I prayed he would go faster, and we would beat all the traffic signals, but he crawled along at a frustratingly slow pace. When we were about 2 miles from the Harare bus terminus, outside the Coca-Cola factory, he picked a fight with a man who had boarded the bus without change. They argued fiercely for at least 5 minutes until a male passenger intervened and gave the would-be passenger $1. Everyone sighed with relief as the bus continued on its way. No one could be more relieved than I was. Eventually, we arrived at the Harare change office terminus, and I saw the bus to St Dominic's School pulling away from its stop. My head spun in a panic, and my fellow passengers started screaming for it to stop and allow me to leave the bus so that I could chase after the school bus. The driver of the school bus slowed down due to a traffic signal turning amber. I felt as though my whole life had just paused at amber. I rushed after the bus and almost boarded a wrong one, the day I learned to run after my education. Passengers, vendors, cyclists all joined in the waving and screaming at the bus driver to stop. One big fat vendor screamed, "Can't you see this child following your bus?" She had her eyes sharply focused on the driver. Everyone knew the women vendors. They had pushed their way into the jungle of the poorest cities. Many had been abandoned by their husbands and undergone so many challenging life experiences that they feared nothing and no one. If a situation did not resolve in their favour, they always levelled the playing field by challenging whoever was to blame to a fight. They had learned to challenge men by using their fists to fend for their children. In the midst of the harsh patriarchal society, they knew their muscles had to be massive. They were not ashamed of their big, floppy buttocks. With their hoarse voices and thick lips, these activists of my time stopped the bus. I breathlessly climbed aboard. As the light turned green, I found myself seated next to a healthy, light-skinned girl. Wherever she came from, she was well looked after. She had moved over to the window seat to make space for me. Smiling kindly, she asked, "Are you all right?" "Ah, yes, thank you," I replied. "Are you coming with us to the entrance test?" I found the question strange, but she had a sweet and innocent air about her. "Who brought you?" she continued, not waiting for a reply to her first question. "I came by myself," I told her. After a short pause, she continued, "And your mom?" "She died 5 years ago." She made no comment. "Your dad?" "I left him asleep." "He could not take you?" The more she asked me questions, the more my eyes filled with tears. I'd learned to suppress my tears. I had cried far too much, and each time pain pierced me, I pierced it back. I wiped the tears before anyone could notice. What possibly told someone I was crying inside were my red eyes. The eyes were overstrained. I lacked sleep. Most headaches had come and gone on their own. When your mother's dead, who do you cry to and get attention? My simple answer was no one to cry to. Finally, she asked me one question I was waiting. "Do you have a pen? Do you have a ruler? Do you have a mathematical set? Do you have a book? Do you have a pencil?" For some time, I thought I was seated next to an angel. I'd heard that angels guide us. This must be one of them. True to the point, she took everything I said I did not have and started giving them to me. She had 4 sets of everything instead of 1 or 2. From this day onwards, she taught me to be generous. She taught me to ask any girl I would meet in life if she had enough to survive. It was not long before we arrived at St Dominic's to write the entrance test. It took a good 2 hours to answer both English and maths tough questions. It was a tough entrance test. After some 4 hours, we got back to the bus. I was very worried about the bus leaving late, because I did not have bus fare for the last leg of my trip back home. Say we got to Harare at 2 p.m. I would need a good 6 hours to walk back to the farm, and so estimate arrival time would be 8 p.m. As soon as I disembarked, I crossed over the road and then started to walk back home. I imagined my stepmother would do to me. I'd gone to school without her permission, and so I was shivering in the cold and just anxious how the meetings would be like.